Talk to Me is A24's new Australian supernatural horror movie with the Philippou brothers, Danny and Michael, writing and making their feature directorial debut. It debuted at this year's Sundance Festival and has brought a lot of hype with it upon release. There's a link to Aussie modern horror classic The Babadook here via producer Samantha Jennings, and while it's more similar in theme and tone to last year's other A24 release, Bodies, 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 you can see that lineage if you look closely. The film opens at a teenage house party when one kid is freaked out and needs to be rescued by his brother. However, in doing so, his brother gets stabbed before the possessed child fatally turns the knife on himself. That moment of sharp escalation sets your expectations for what's to come in the movie. From there, the movie lulls you into a false sense of security by introducing its feature characters. We meet Mia, played by Sophie Wilde, who has latched onto the family of Alexandra Jensen's Jade after she's gone through a personal tragedy. Similarly to Bodies, 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 the tone is kind of playful from the outset, and there's an in-betweener style level of banter and slaggings to give the movie a stamp of authenticity and allows us to connect to the characters early, which is important for what's to come. The world feels lived in and the relationships already built, so it's easy for us to just step in right away. Particularly helpful with this is Miranda Otto, who's pretty much the only known actor in the production, lending the film credence as the fantastically sassy, no bullshit Mother Sue. At a house party, Mia and Jade are introduced to a dismembered hand, whereby if you hold it and say, "Talk to me," you'll find yourself possessed, which the onlookers film then for entertainment. Of course, it doesn't take long for this childish game to go horribly wrong, and similar to the beginning, when things escalate, they really fucking escalate. The setup is relatively simple. They're not reinventing the wheel here by any means. It's a horror film type of movie that you've seen a million times before, but Talk to Me earns the reputation that precedes it and stands out from your typical jump scare teen horror for a number of reasons for how well it executes that concept. As well as the relationships being built so you care about the characters, it gets really intense really quickly in a way that you're just not ready for. In the screening that I was in, I was sitting in a row beside a bunch of young lads who were chuckling along to the early jokes, much like myself. But when it kicked in, all of us started having almost visceral reaction that you'd rarely see in horror movies. And I'm a horror aficionado. Nothing scares me anymore or gives me big reactions. Even in projects like this year's Evil Dead Rise, which relies on almost a sickening level of ultra violence, which isn't the case in Talk to Me. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't hold back for violence, but it also isn't doing it as a stunt either. You don't feel like the violence is catering for lack of substance in any way. Everything in this feels earned. When you react to something, it's because you build a relationship with the characters. It's both happening to and impacting, and the left turns are so sudden and so devastating. This isn't a sentimental movie, and things will happen to people because it's the logical endpoint of their character arc and the decisions they've made. There's no plot armor here, and you never feel anyone is safe of, say, being a final girl that these movies would usually rely upon, which means that you're permanently tense throughout. Talk to Me doesn't follow the modern jump scare horror rhythm of getting really quiet and then getting really noisy out of nowhere. You'll come out of a tense scene and expect to breathe for a second, only to be thrust back into an even more intense scene. And like The Babadook, though it doesn't beat you over the head with a message, it is ultimately a meditation on living with grief and the impact of lack of closure that elevates it without ever seeming haughty either. All in all, Talk to Me may be my front runner so far for Best Horror 2023. It has the perfect blend of accessibility and depth to please both casual horror fans and snobs like me, and also does a relatively simple concept really fucking well. It's a great debut for the Philippou brothers, and you sense will be a star-making vehicle for the likes of Wilde and Jensen after their performers. It's in cinemas on wide release now. Go out of your way to see it.